Hey sweet friends, well here it is, my 10 fresh flips for spring and summer. And I know it was a thing of legend. Nobody believed it was actually coming, but here it is, and I'm so excited. The first thing we're going to do is the framed shadow box. I saw this online. It was in a pop-up ad for Michael's, and I forget what the exact price was, but it was, I think, 60 something, which I thought, obviously I can make this thing for less than 60 something dollars. So I did find the curved shaped frame, and as you can see, I'm adding some little balsa strips. You can get a package of that balsa in just a variety of pack of different sizes, so that you can just have it on hand for different kinds of things. And I needed to do that so that it would fit better. Me and my hot glue gun, I hot glue everything. If it's not gonna have a lot of actual wear and tear on it, hot glue is absolutely sufficient. Now you'll see, I do love coral, but that wasn't the overall look that I wanted. So I'm just going over the whole thing with a coat of regular acrylic paint. I think I paid 50 cents for that big bottle of brown at the thrift store. And then I am hot gluing on some embellishments. I did use air dry clay and a little silicone mold for those not fleur-de-lis, swirls, I don't know, fancy things. And I'm using, you could see I had my drywall spackling that starts out pink and turns white when it's dry, and I filled in all the little edges where you could see, space between the embellishments and the background. And then I just kind of rubbed spackling over some of the big areas, and then I did just different layers of gray and white, and just till it got old and worn looking as much as I wanted. And I think it's fairly believable. Anyway, it's cute. I think that glass jar is crooked, for goodness sakes. Look at my little pigs and the little ducks. Oh, adorable. How cute is that? And I'm going to continue adding little things and maybe switching things out, because I think the little animals are cute in there. Pillow covers. This will be the first time that I've ever sewn anything on my sewing machine in front of you, and oh my word, I didn't have a good place to cut out. There was stuff already on my dining room table, so here I am using a huge framed picture as my cutting table. Well, I used a pillow cover that I knew fitted my inserts, and just cut the squares. And what I'm doing here is showing you how that the invisible zipper works, and it's an easy process, and there's better YouTube tutorials on how to do that than what I'm doing. But what you do is you go ahead and sew the seam shut. Just that first seam is the only one you want to do, and then place your invisible zipper with the right side down, and then you stitch it on. And after you do all that, you take your little seam ripper and very carefully just unstitch that seam, and it makes a perfectly good invisible zipper area. Now I used purple because that was something I had in my stash from thrifting, and it's the bottom of the pillow. I really didn't care. Purple is actually one of the colors in the fabric. I got that fabric for a couple of dollars. Let's see, I guess for the 3 pieces that I bought, I probably paid maybe $6 or $7 for all that, and there'll be enough to do 4 big pillow covers. And I haven't done all the pillow covers yet because all right. And when you finish the other 3 sides and turn it right side out and put your pillow insert in, and there it is, and it's as simple as that. And if you sew, you probably already know this. If you have not sewed before, then you might begin to have some interest and think, well, I can do that. And of course you can. Anybody can do anything if they're just shown how. I'm a big believer in you can do just about anything. If you can read, and these days, if you can watch a YouTube tutorial, you can do just about anything. The Enamelware Look. Well, you know, I love to pick up old enamelware. Now that's just a Pinterest picture to show you what kind of look I was going for. But you don't often see them in thrift stores or flea markets, and if you do, they're kind of pricey. So I just gathered up some random pieces and spray painted them, and guess what? I'm not a good spray painter. I'm not patient for it to dry. I guess I'm putting it on too fast. I don't know what I'm doing, but it makes drips and runs and splotches, and that would matter more, but it doesn't matter for this project because you're going to be making it look old. You see that big wash tub? That is an authentic, very old wash tub that I got for $2.98 at a thrift store in Huntsville several years ago. And I had it sitting out so that I could let it inspire me as to how to do the chipped and rusty places on it, because I definitely wanted to add that to it. I didn't want it to look like a new piece. I wanted it to look old. So I'm just taking black. You saw that I used nail polish on that red, right? Because I thought that would probably dry shiny and be a good thing to do, and it did. It did great. The splotchy places, I just purposely looked for places where the spray paint had bubbled up, or I had, knocked against it and it had a worn off place or something, and I just went with it. I just went with that. And the second piece here, I used black because I wanted to use, different things, different, and I think pretty also would be an almond colored one with a green edge. I'm going to try that next. But I did also use some brown paint splotched on there to look like a little bit of rust, because that's what the authentic antique one looked like. And there are my little faux figs sitting in there. I think these are fairly believable. I mean, honestly, if somebody didn't tell you that these were faked, you might not know it, because look how similar it looked to the actual authentic piece. That's easy to do. You can pick that stuff up for 25 cents. Okay, this big sheep art. I saw this picture on Pinterest and I was smitten. I just thought that sheep was wonderful. So I found a sheep image on Pinterest, internet somewhere, and then I figured out how to print it out in sections to fit the big foam board, and it's bigger than a poster paper because I wanted it to be extra big. So I got a big piece of foam board at Hobby Lobby, and I taped the pattern together. And you could I've done this before, just Mod Podge onto the cutout onto your paperboard, foam board. But sometimes foam board, it kind of warps a little bit if it gets too wet. So I decided this time I would just I used a pencil and made the first outline with pencil, just drawing on top of the outline of my sheep. And then I went back with a Sharpie to get a really good outline. And then came the fun part, to me, the creative part of just using my black paint and texturing it in there to look like fuzzy sheep wool. Now, I've never been around a live sheep in my entire life, but I kept looking at my pattern that I had printed out to get, the detail, something to go by, because I don't know. And there was a little grass on the image that I had printed out, so I mimicked that as well. And because this is just foam board, I did go around it with some little pieces of wood, and I literally just hot glued the wood. And it was because it had a slight curve to it, so I decided that a little bit of wood trim would hold it straight, and it totally did. And I totally just hot glued it, and it's absolutely sufficient, absolutely perfect. Oh, and I decided that to make it look a little more aged and not so bright white, my favorite Waverly plaster, the color plaster is kind of an off-white. I dry brushed some plaster over the entire picture, just back and forth, till it looked older. okay, you might have seen the elephant tape dispenser in the sheep project. I got this in Chattanooga, and I think he's so cute, and he would have been cute just to leave him gold. I would bet he would have been absolutely cute. He didn't have the thing that holds the tape in the middle, but he did have the sharp cutting part, and I knew that I could rig something up to go across there. So I decided I want him to look a little more natural, because I don't do a lot of bling. Sometimes I do bling, but I don't often do a lot of bling. So I went over him with the plaster color, and then I did antique wax, and I made him look a little darker and older, and then I distressed it down so that you could see little hints of that gold still coming through. And I'm a big fan of distressing, because things in my house, we're a big active family, and things are going to get distressed whether I mean for them to or not. So it's just better to go ahead and distress something and allow it to be in a condition where if you do get a scratch on something, it's really not going to show too much. Now, I kind of went heavy on that. I'm going to go back and wipe that off a little bit. That cute little elephant. I'm enjoying. He's just sitting around my house, just patiently waiting for me to use tape. There he is. The antique wax, after I rubbed and rubbed it in and smoothed it on, anytime you use chalk paint, you really do need to use a finishing wax or spray some kind of sealer, because chalk paint's very dry, very matte, and it will scratch off somewhat if you don't seal it. You do need to seal it. Oh, I just used a piece of balsa wood in there across the middle to hold the tape still. Working great. That's so cute. I'm surprised my little grandbabies have not discovered him and pulled every inch of tape off the roll yet. But eventually they'll realize that he exists, and they'll most certainly have a reason to use tape 10 times a day. Rustic Ladder. I love the way ladders look when they're hung from the ceiling and greenery put on them. Let's see. The Little Blue Fly. I love that channel on YouTube. She has one that she hangs up. But then I began to see a few images. These are all Pinterest images of the ladders made with the sticks. Well, we did a bunch of yard work and had some trees that needed to come down, and other trees had to be trimmed. And I noticed how straight and good the branches were. So I was out there with Ben as he worked, and I was gathering myself up a good supply. I could probably do 4 or 5 more of these ladders. I don't know if I will. I mean, if somebody that I know wants one, I could do another one. But I drilled holes and then drilled screws. And then you're going to get to see a really fun image of, of me with my ladder in the bathtub and me trying to... I put the nails in the ceiling. It is a wood ceiling. And I put the nails at an angle in the ceiling so that the jute strings... And look, I'm having to hold it up with my head to do this end. Oh, that's fun. That's cute. Okay, but just jute. It didn't matter. I didn't want it to really show. You could have used chain, and you could have used actual cup hooks or something, but I didn't want to make that big of holes in my ceiling. So I put my vines, the pip berries, those are large pip berries, and I think that's pretty, and a little bit of greenery up there. And there is an absolutely unnecessary but very special little rustic ladder that I think it really goes well with the natural looking bird nests and bird prints and the green and white florals in those olive baskets. I mistakenly called them wine baskets, but hopefully you knew what I meant. They're olive baskets. But so far, not one of my guys has said a single word about that ladder hanging above the bathtub. Do they not see it? They probably just don't care. They probably just don't think it's a big deal. That's fine. I love it. All right, the purse from a jacket. I decided this was like doing fabric and hot glue decoupage. There was my inspiration picture. And there was the jacket that I got for probably 25 cents because it was in a bag full of stuffed full for $5. And it, the jacket had that beautiful embroidery on it, but it wasn't my size, and it was about to go to a landfill or something. And I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to do something with it. So I found the tote in Chattanooga. I think I paid $2.50 for that tote, maybe $3, something like that. And the jacket only cost 25 cents. And I just cut the jacket up, the sleeves, the front, the back, all of that jacket was completely covered with the embroidery. So I just glued it on, and the places where it had to be cut or trimmed or whatever, I ended up even putting a few extra little embellishments from the odd pieces that were obviously left over, and just added them to maybe cover up a spot that looked like it, like I didn't want you to see the cut edge anywhere, and you really can't after it's done. But I just trimmed things out and went around the edges of the flowers and overlapped things so that, of course, none of that actual tote bag showed. By the way, I tried to get those gold rivets out of there. Not happening. So they're just still under there. But it doesn't matter because the fabric is real lumpy and textured, and you can't tell it anyway. So here I go forevermore. This took a good bit longer than I expected to get that on there, but I really love the result. I think it's an adorable tote bag. I will use it just having a lot of fun when I'm carrying it around, thinking this was a jacket that was going to be thrown away. But I saved it. And so for, $3, around $3, that is a cute tote bag. And I did just leave the handles, the original vinyl, because I felt like that would be a little more practical, and I didn't want anything peeling off. Bread box. I have been seeing other people redo bread boxes, and I think they're so pretty. So when I saw this one for $4, I picked it up, and it was just basic wood, plain Jane bread box, but it got a coat of the moss Waverly chalk paint, which is one of my very favorite colors. And I've got several things in my kitchen right now that have that accent color on them. So I put the chalk paint on and decided this would be a great thing to use some transfers. But I did have a little scrap of this wallpaper left over from when I did that lap desk. And I did Mod Podge. Well, no, I switched to the glue stick because Mod Podge and wallpaper, it sometimes lumps up or wrinkles up a little. So the glue stick held it wonderfully, beautifully, with no lumping. All right, now what I do is I practice on the bottom or the back of things to see how I'm going to like the finish. I'm using I think this time I did just use watered down plaster, but I could have used white wax, either one. But now if you just dry brush it on like I'm doing the chalk paint over there to get a softer finish, you do need to give it some kind of spray finish. Now the little transfers came from Amazon. You can zoom in on that and see what the name is if you want to find a set on Amazon for yourself. The good thing about these transfer sets is they will do a lot of projects. I mean, I guess if you were doing a big dresser or a big piece of furniture, you would use all of them on one project. But the way that I normally do small items, they last a long time. And I broke the stick that came with it. You see me had to lay the end of that stick. I was pushing really firmly because I wanted to make sure that it got completely down in those little grooves. And there it is with some tortilla, a package of tortillas and powdered donuts. And this is my kitchen, and that's fun. Pressed ferns on linen. Well, honestly, it's pressed ferns on a hymn book page on linen. And these are actual fern leaves that came off when I bought my ferns. Moving them in, getting them home. It took me, even being careful, they fall off sometimes. You see I'm tearing, I'm making a little nip in the fabric, and then I tear it so that it has a raggedy edge. This matted picture frame, I already had that, and I liked it, so I just went with it. I put my fabric down, and then, well, you know, I'm seeing how the mats line up and making sure that it's going to stick with the way I want it to. And I am using glue stick because it's very sufficient. It holds wonderfully for me. I mean, there might be a project it wouldn't work well for, but lots of projects it really does. And it's not too wet, and it doesn't cause your papers to wrinkle up or buck up or anything. So there are my, and I had those under a piece of glass flattening them out, but I think I could have also put a cloth over them and ironed them with a dry iron and made them even flatter. You'll see in a minute when I show you the finished product. Now I'm just gluing those down with glue stick, just sticking them down. It works just fine. You know, it didn't occur to me that these might eventually turn brown, but I don't think they will when they come off the vine or the plant green. I think they stay green. Okay, here we're putting the mats back in and the picture back in, and I did hang this in my foyer because I've got a hanging fern right there, and you can see the way the lamp's casting the light up onto that. You can see a lot of wrinkles, and that wasn't visible or noticeable at all until I put it on the wall with that lamp sitting below it. So, you know, if it mattered much to me, I would go back and iron those flat, but I don't think it really matters that much to me. Vintage wood caddy. Now, I found the little caddy. I can't remember if I found that in Chattanooga or if I found it locally, but I printed out just an image of, I typed in vintage industrial crate, vintage crates, product crates, and I thought I was going to use the little detail of the dovetail. Now see, there's the image that I found, and I actually printed out two things at once, the other image with it. I just printed out several that day. Okay, I decided it was better without those little dovetail things, but I did use the Mod Podge on this one because I felt like the way that I was going to be using this, by the way, I think I paid $2.99 for that little wood caddy, and the color of this image matched really well. It was a very similar tone and color, so I, you know, Mod Podged it on there, underneath and on top, a little bit on top, around the edges on top, because where I'm using this is going to be in my bathroom. I'm going to put my combs and brushes in there, and I wanted it to not immediately peel up. You know, the glue stick might have been sufficient, I don't know, but I was in the mood to do the Mod Podge, so that's what I did, and you can see me rubbing on it to get as many wrinkles out as I can. But again, the whole beauty of a distressed finish is that imperfections just don't matter. They just don't matter. That's the left-hand side of my bathroom counter, and I tend to be a little bit of a clutter bug. My dish that I put in my jewelry and hair pieces and glasses and whatever, it's got a little raised up thing that I put my rings on. I love that. But that looks pretty authentic as well. That's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing projects like that are quick and easy and end up being very special to me. Just makes me feel good. Now I have a special thanks for a lovely, sweet subscriber, Miss Gail Grassler. Look what she sent me. Look at this adorable little wood cabin plaque. And it is signed by the artist. I ended up putting it in my foyer above our key hook. The key hook says home. And the little log cabin looks so homey. And it looks so much like the vintage preserved cabins that are for public. You know, you can walk through them in Cades Cove in the Smoky Mountains. there are several cabins that look like that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate every one of you who take the time to comment, and you're just so encouraging to me, and I really feel the connection with you, and I pray for y'all. I pray that God blesses you and that your lives are good and full of joy.